Good afternoon. This is Mark Dodds, People's Pub Partnership, one of the pub persuaders, one of the pub professionals, one of the people who knows what's going on. A year ago, this is about what's going on in the pub sector, in the British pub sector, Tide pubs particularly. It's about the 24th of November 2015, and a year ago, on the 18th of November 2014, some legislation passed through into law against the three-line government whip called market rent only. And this is going to give Tide pub tenants the right to apply to go free of tie at particular times during the course of their cycle of rent reviews, various other triggers. The government clearly didn't want it to happen because they had a three-line whip against it. The government lost. Parliament voted democratically, decisively, to bring this through into law, because basically most politicians realise that the reason why pubs are closing everywhere in Britain is because they're being asset stripped by pub companies who can't pay their debts without over-leveraging, sweating their assets, ripping off all their tenants, eventually forcing their pubs into closure and failure, at which point the pubs get sold off for alternative use at more than their value as pubs. And you've seen it all over the press nationally, from Land's End to John O'Groats. It's happening everywhere, and it's the principal reason for why pubs are closing. Now, of course, the myth is that pubs are closing because of smoking bans and legislation and VAT and business rates and poor tenants. There's a million reasons why. None of the reasons are because pub companies charge more than free of tie rents to their tied tenants, and then they charge their tenants double the open market price for their beer supplies, which makes the tenants' businesses unprofitable or not profitable enough. The tenants then can't invest in the property, in their businesses. The businesses become run down. Customers abandon the businesses because they're not up to contemporary expectations, and eventually the business fails. The pubs become dilapidated and they get sold. Simple as that. It's not very complicated. Now, the real problem here is that the pub companies say it's got nothing to do with them. The pub companies say that all of their tenants who fail because they're no good at business. And when a tenant fails, ultimately what tends to happen is they get evicted from their pub. Very often they become bankrupted, sometimes they become homeless. And essentially the taxpayer picks up the bills. These tenants become non-publicans. They get emergency housing. They live on benefits, which of course is another issue right now. And the tenants who are actually in existence, whose businesses are still trading, by and large are on tax credits. It's another issue for them now. And all of this is basically the public purse subsidising private pubcos. The pubcos, if you check out the financial pages, if you check out their annual reports, you'll see that they're paying off gigantic debts, and they're doing it by selling off, say, 300, 400 pubs every year for alternative use, and they use that cash to pay off their loans. It's all mental, it's all insane, it's all very obvious if you spend a bit of time looking into it. And yet all the time, whilst this has been going on for a couple of decades, as the pubcos tell the public that their publicans are failing them, because they fail all the time and their pubs close all the time and their businesses churn and so on, again and again and again, the pubcos are actually selling off hundreds and hundreds of pubs. Enterprise Inns and Punch Taverns were both once, not so long ago, around about 8,000 and 10,000 pubs big. They're now around about 4,000 each, something like this. I don't know, the figures are diminishing all the time. What happened to the 8,000 or 10,000 pubs that they used to have that they've sold? Well, they've all been sold to other pub companies, or they've been sold for alternative use. And these are very clear signs of failing businesses. And yet, whilst all that goes on, The tenants that these people screw and put out of business are described as failures. The pubcos are described as businesses experiencing financial hardship, and the chief executives of these pub companies get hundreds of thousands of pounds a year in bonuses for presiding over the decimation of British traditions, national heritage, our cultural way of life, our sense of place, and basically destroying one of the fundamental parts of Britishness. That's about it for the moment.